it becomes an embarrassment. It becomes something that people refer to in a way of shame, and something that is not exciting. But when they talk of a man and sexual behavior and all these other things, it becomes a pride for a man. And in fact, the men become heroes. So why would men be glorified in doing that, and women are embarrassed and are ashamed, and most of the time it is working to their disadvantage? Madam Speaker, it is high time that as a country we take care of our girls in schools because they are exploited sexually. We take care of our girls in colleges because in order for them to pass exams, the professors, the lecturers take advantage of them. And it is high time for us to say enough is enough. And our girls need to stand up and say no to this bad behavior and evil practice. Madam Speaker, our society is losing focus. And society is everything. When we embarrass women, when we harass women, just because of the poverty level they are in, just because a woman is a single mother and bringing up her child on her own, Madam Speaker, this will bring a lot of curse to our nation. Let me just touch on the border issue. Women are harassed everywhere, even in the Ubers.
Please give her a minute. 1 minute, please.
Women are harassed in offices, they are harassed in schools, they are harassed even in parliament, they are harassed everywhere. And even on the borders, because I understand our young girls, when they cannot pay for their transport to school, they have to be harassed. Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Member for Marsabit shall be heard in silence. Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you for protecting me, Madam Speaker. And I want to say that harassing women for sex or sexually will not help this country, but it will only bring a lot of disadvantages to us. We need to overcome it as a country and come up with measures that will control this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well spoken, Member for Marsabit. So now the Honorable Member for Kathiani. You may have your chance.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to also make my contribution on this issue of sexual harassment in Kericho Tea Estates. And first, I want to thank the committee for an excellent report. Secondly, I want to thank the media for highlighting this issue, Madam Speaker, because BBC really did highlight this issue. Madam Speaker, if you look at, my big concern is when you look at the observations by the committee itself. One of the things that the committee says is that investigations by DCI into the allegations are progressing very slowly. In fact, I think, Madam Speaker, that's a veiled way of saying that there are no investigations that were even going on. Madam Speaker, secondly, they say that the 4 persons that were named in the documentary as perpetrators had not been arrested nor even charged in any court of law. So, Madam Speaker, it means that even though there was an expose, our investigating authorities did not bother to maybe go and address this matter. And from the committee's report, there is fear that maybe these tea workers that were harassed are probably not going to get justice. Madam Speaker, I want to begin by saying that those in authority must be sure to take responsibility, take action against the perpetrators. It is very, very important. Nevertheless, Madam Speaker, it's important to note that women in other sectors, for example, secretaries in offices, tea girls, house girls, are also harassed. So it's not just the tea workers. A lot of women are harassed in their places of work. And that, of course, Madam Speaker, has to do with those that are in authority, because those that can harass them are the people in authority. Madam Speaker, that also takes me to also point out that there are also men that are hustlers that are the low cadre that have also go to give favors to also be employed, sometimes also to get promotions. So there are also men, young men, that are harassed by their female employers, and sometimes, Madam Speaker, unfortunately, by their male employers. So, Madam Speaker, this is really an issue that we need to address, and employers have to have a moral authority and make sure that they also hold the officers to respect. Madam Speaker, maybe one of the solutions that we need to think about is the possibility of introducing some of these into our education system, so that those that go through the education system in Kenya can understand when they are being harassed. I watched a clip on social media of a leader I think it was in Tanzania, that was teaching the children what exactly to avoid, where if they are touched in certain places, they should be able to quickly go and report. Because these things start at an early age. Some of these perpetrators are people that have been able to do this over the years. So if we can be able to teach our children to be able to avoid this, then we'll probably be able to start solving it. Madam Speaker, the Computer and Cyber Crimes Act prohibits the misuse of gadgets, for example, mobile phones. And Madam Speaker, I want to again say that the victims of this kind of crime, of circulating, sexual, escapades on social media, is not only women. I remember the former deputy governor of one of our counties was a victim. In fact, he was shown naked on these social media gadgets, and he was being harassed. Actually, there were just people trying to extort money. We have seen a former member of parliament, actually, I think two, who's also clip circulated. And now currently we have seen another one that is being purported to belong to maybe one of our leaders in the country. Madam Speaker, I think we have to be careful. With artificial intelligence, the world is reaching a point where even you did not participate in, just because they have photographs of these people and they have their audios. So, Madam Speaker, we have to be careful. But as a country, Madam Speaker, those of us that are so quick to circulate those videos and to watch those videos, I want to say we are becoming a sick society. We must also understand that we must respect people's privacy. When you find people watching such things and sharing them, those are perverts, and those are people that have no space in this country. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Very well spoken. The Honorable Rebecca Tonke.
It's okay now. It's okay. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Sorry, thank you, Madam Speaker. Sorry, my mic is misbehaving. Madam Speaker, I also rise to contribute on this motion on the way there's sexual harassment in our workplaces. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Honorable Beatrice Kemei and our committee for bringing this motion, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it's not only the women in Kericho T that are suffering, but Madam Speaker, this issue of sexual harassment is all over in our workplaces. Madam Speaker, the women are suffering. And when these women are suffering, Madam Speaker, this blocks them to take leadership positions. Because when you are harassed in your workplace, Madam Speaker, you actually hardly go to the office because you fear to appear there, because at times when you go there, you fear to face the harasser. Madam Speaker, it is time that the government and the law must be enforced so that the women are protected. Madam Speaker, looking at this sexual harassment, it comes in many forms, as just like one of my colleagues said. Sometimes when you greet a man, some of the men even press your hand very hard. That is sexual harassment, Madam Speaker. And it is really harasses one until you feel like, should you shake this man's hand the next time you meet him? Madam Speaker, sexual harassment causes mental depression. And you become depressed and stressed. And Madam Speaker, every time you want to go to work, you are thinking of the person you are going to meet who holds authority. And Madam Speaker, when you get there, when you think of meeting that man in the morning who is supposed to allocate you duties, Madam Speaker, you are depressed. So even sleeping at night becomes a nightmare because you fear meeting your harasser. Madam Speaker, looking at what is happening, even all over the world, women are judged harshly. When something happens like what has been happening, just like our colleague said, you know, women are often judged so harshly. When a woman is seen by men or anybody, even in the society, when these videos circulate, like the one we saw recently, Madam Speaker, people do not judge the man who is circulating that harshly, but the woman is judged harshly, and yet this thing took two people to do that. Madam Speaker, I think it's time that people know that women are also, they are human beings, they have feelings, and they have a right to sex. Therefore, nobody should be circulating this if it happens, because that is still harassment. Madam Speaker, I do not want to dwell on that, because as women, some of these issues really gives us a lot of stress, and we feel so bitter that we do not have something to do. And as Honorable Millie has said, that we should be aware of these people. And women, colleagues, friends, and even women out there, I want to advise you to be careful. And as the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 15 says, beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. Madam Speaker, sometimes we get people who come to us as women, especially women who are in leadership. They come in very good and lovely words, but Madam Speaker, they have wrong and ill motives. Fellow women, it's time to be careful. It's time to protect your own image. Know who is coming to you. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Rebecca. Honorable members, I would like to recognize, seated in the public gallery, AIC Chebisas Boys High School from Moiben constituency in Uasin Gishu County. You are welcome to the National Assembly. Honorable members, the next opportunity goes to the Honorable Timothy Wanyonyi, member for Westlands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance also to speak on this report by the committee. Madam Speaker, sexual harassment anywhere, whether at workplace, whether at home, anywhere, Madam Speaker, is primitive and is sickening. The people who do this, Madam Speaker, they misuse and abuse their authority over the people they are managing. And these are people who use any small opportunity to exploit the people who are junior to them. And Madam Speaker, it is not just about women, it's also about men. There are men who are also harassed. But mostly, those who suffer the most are women. The stigma is very high. And I would like to say, Madam Speaker, that this should be made something that should be very painful. And people who are doing that, it doesn't matter which rank, which position you hold in any office, it should be made punishable. And we should also encourage those who are harassed to report these things without fear so that it is dealt with. And we should also make our police service, maybe create a special unit to just be addressing these issues, because most of them don't understand. When people call to report, they try to make a joke out of it. Madam Speaker, the other thing is that in this era of social media, we are parading ourselves. Sometimes we make ourselves, put ourselves so much in the public that you are exposing yourself to anything and everything. And some of these young fellows, or not even young fellows, even people, We've seen even our former governor used to post so many things in the social media. And you'll find yourself, Madam Speaker, also in that position. I don't know whom you'll complain to, because you have put yourself in such a way that those people who are accessing you, just make sure that don't allow cameras in your privacy. Don't allow pictures when you are doing your private thing. Even when you are eating, don't take pictures. Just keep the cameras away. These are some of the things that are being exploited, Madam Speaker, and we bring it up so that we must preserve our personal dignity. We must preserve some of the things that we do that make us human. So, Madam Speaker, I believe that this motion is something that we must take it very seriously as a society, and it also speaks a lot about our values. The values have really changed. That people, even in church, you see people are doing funny things. They are seated there, even seated in a very awkward position, and they're just allowing cameras to roll around them. And then they post those things in the social media. So we just, I don't know, what is it really that we want to see? As Africans, we believe that what you want, the sweetest thing is that is hidden. It's not that what is so exposed. The good thing is that you must work for it. Even called, Madam Speaker, you want for it, you have to dig down in the rock, to break that rock, and then put it around the fire to make it valuable. So, as we want also, I want that thing that I will labor to get there, not just which is just already exposed to me. I'll lose appetite, maybe before I get there. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, what was circulating in the social media was sickening, and I just think, Madam Speaker, that those people who have done that, they have lacked self-respect. They have no respect for themselves and even the people around them, including their own family. As fathers and husbands and sons, we must protect the dignity of our women at all times, at any place and anywhere, Madam Speaker. Thank you for giving me a chance to contribute. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Phyllis Bartow, member for Moiben.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also contribute to this motion on sexual harassment. I rise on behalf of the women of Moiben constituency, where I come from. Madam Speaker, this age-old practice where women face discriminatory behavior because of their gender should come to an end in Kenya. This sexual harassment business has been an age-old problem to women in all spaces, in places of work, in many spaces, in their marriages, in political spaces, and so on. The society should stop harassing women. And most of the women who are harassed, for example, are at the lower cadre of life where they are trying to fend for their children. Sometimes they are forced to accept because they don't have an option. What is said in Kiswahili, kubali yaishe. That's what they normally say, kubali yaishe, because they just want to finish with the business so that they can get what they can get, so that they can go back and fend for their children. It is very embarrassing and it is very painful. Madam Speaker, sir, I want to encourage, sorry, Madam Speaker, sorry. Madam Speaker, I want to encourage our men and women that when they come across such images, they should delete in the social media. They shouldn't allow it to move to the next level because, yes, thank you, Honorable Millie, it's a crime. And when you forward it to somebody else, you are giving it power. You are empowering the person who originated it. And I want to say this to our fellow men. I think it is, from my culture, it is an abomination to see the nakedness of a woman, and more so a mother. When you see the nakedness of a mother who is not your wife or your friend, or, I mean, you are supposed to get blind. That's what my culture says. So I can say, categorically say, that those who are proliferating this problem, those who are transporting these images from one point to another, may they get blind, as my sister said, and they should never see light again, so that they will not be able to pass that information. And Madam Speaker, even in political spaces, women have suffered the most, especially those who have the courage to vie for political seats in Kenya. They face so many forms of discrimination. So many bad things are said about them. How I wish that if men and women are to compete in any space, let this competition be very fair, and let everyone given an opportunity without using terrible words against women. Madam Speaker, I want to say I want to follow up on what has just been said about the most recent photo about a woman leader in Kenya, that we condemn it with the strongest terms. And it is so bad that even our own fellow women are also talking badly about it. Morality is an individualistic, it's an individual's thing. It is in your own heart. And as it has been said, it is God alone who knows what is good or what is bad. Can we stop making judgments or passing judgments against our fellow women as if those of us who are making those judgments are very perfect? Let us not allow our own women colleagues to suffer as we wait and see. Let us come up, all of us, and stand up and speak out against these fights, so that our society, women in our society, get
Thank you very much. Honorable members, before we proceed, I would like to recognize, seated in the Speaker's Gallery, AIC Philemon Chelegat girls from Baringo Central in Baringo County. And seated in the public gallery, St. John Paul II Educational Center, Moranga, from Madhyoya constituency in Moranga County. You are welcome to the National Assembly. Honorable members, the next opportunity goes to the member for Kangundo, the Honorable Fabian Muli.
Thank you very much, Madam Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to add my voice on this report. Honorable Speaker, I declare my local stand before I go ahead. I was part of the team which visited the James Finley and the Katerina farm in Kericho. Honorable Madam Speaker, we went to the farm. Actually, when you go to that farm, it is a population of almost 100,000 people living 80,000 acres, which look to be not within the Kenyan jurisdiction. The lifestyle, and you compare the lifestyle of people living there, and this life we are living here, look like still enclosed place. So the place and the words we found in the expose of BBC, the people mentioned, it is true. They exist. The people mentioned in the report, they are there. They used to be the senior managers, and some are still the senior managers of these tea farms, and they're still working there. About Madam Speaker, we went further. When we were doing interrogation and inquired with this report, we found that actually the story is not about the sex only. The issue is to bring fear amongst the workers who are working there. The women being raped, they are the wives of some guys working there as stewards or working maybe as junior tea plantation. There are also sisters of men who are working there. So the issue on that farm should not be treated like another issue of sexual abuse. So, honorable members, I'm arguing you through the speaker. The report we have from this farm, the people living in this farm, they are still not yet gone to 1963. They are behind independence of this country. Even the workers who are working there, they're in fear and trauma. You cannot face your supervisors direct with your eyes. We also found that not only the government officials like security team, they cannot assess the farm. They can only meet the senior managers of the farm, but they are not able to assess the work of that farm. So there's a very big disconnect within the public administrations and the people working there. The people who are working there, we need to understand that they are schooled inside. Also, their kids are working there. Who the senior manager, they go ahead by raping those kids. The people are traumatized and they are very scared to talk about it because they are going to lose the work. Again, you get now, when they tell us, they have the stories about the sexual report, which they say they have tried to give people, they are not able to report. If you report any sexual abuse, the workers told us, is the time you lose your work. So it is a way of managing these people to live with fear in those society, in those tea plantations. Also, the Minister of Labor, the officer who is in charge of Kericho County, is only one person. Just imagine these two farms, they have almost 100,000 workers, where we have only one officer for labor who cannot even assess them. The information he gets through the management. Again, in the same farm, you get the managers and the workers. There is very big disconnect. The workers are not able to assess the offices. So by telling us they have examined the gender offices in the police station, these people, they are living within that society. By the time you are leaving those tea farm, you need to have permission to leave. That tea farm, you live with your wife, you live with your kids. So you are not supposed to assess the police outside to go to report those sports happening for sexual abuses. So these people, they cannot have an opportunity to express their rights within those police stations. So, Honorable Madam Speaker, these farms, the kind of pay given to the workers, it is a way to give subcontract. The subcontractors given the work to work there, they are the managers of the company. Again, another way to milk the money from the directors who don't sit in this country. So you get the workers are being misused by the fellow Kenyans. Then the other thing is about the culture. When we went ahead to meet the security department, they say there is a culture in that area. People cannot report about the sex. The sex matters are treated private, and that's why you see we have found that it is true, it is happening in those tea farms. Thank you very much, Madam Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Donya Doris, member for Kisii County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to comment on the issue of the to government offices when employees are maybe supposed to go for a trip. The person in charge will always want to be accompanied by ladies who compromise. He will always want his girlfriends to accompany him. This thing is very common. I'm even wishing we have annual reports where we celebrate or we give statements through the suggestion box at various public and private offices to know what's ailing the workers. We should not speak and go. We must be doers. When we celebrate Madaraka Day, Mashujaa Day, during Labor Day, when we are celebrating the plight of workers, we should have this suggestion box telling us what is eating the workers. And this is when, Madam Speaker, you will learn that workers are really suffering, because the trips are very normal for workers to visit Mombasa or even to go outside the country. When these visits are taking course, that is when the women, mostly women, are compromised. If you are not going with so and so and you will not be maybe sleeping with him, you will not go for that trip. Or if you go for that trip and you don't agree to what your boss is saying, next time you will not be permitted, you won't be allowed. And you know very well, per diems are very gracious to all of us. One will always want to have them apart from the normal thing that people go maybe for work. So let's take this thing serious. If it happens so, the culprits will fear, and this thing will end. That I can tell you, Madam Speaker. And lastly, on the issue of sharing of videos and demeaning women, it's so surprising that most of the people, we are never approached by fellow women for sex or love matters. We are always approached by our dear men, and we wonder why they take the sweet moment to be a disaster to the woman. We allow them. We accept the advances that they make to us. All of a sudden, it's on social media. And the people who share these clips more are men. Like the clips that is circulating, you can see by yourself, the clothes that are being worn by the one being suggested to be the one are totally different. But people will convince you, no, this is the same person, it's the same picture, just because they want to bring down someone. Let's be serious. Let's be doers and not talkers, so that we can, for once, deal with this issue of sexual harassment in our private and public sector. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Member for Kisii. The Honorable Cynthia Muge, Member for Nandi County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this motion. I want to appreciate the Committee on Labor for having done a very good job when they went for the field visit in Kericho, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I also want to thank the media that actually brought the whole story into the limelight. Honorable Speaker, whatever is happening in this country, and not just in the multinationals or in the tea estates in Kericho, is very bad, Honorable Speaker. This particular act of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, exists in every part of this community and society in Kenya. It exists, Honorable Speaker, in the churches. I know it looks and sounds awkward, Honorable Speaker, when someone says sexual harassment exists in the church. It does exist in the church, Honorable Speaker. You have seen many churches that call themselves churches. I am not sure whether they are really churches, Honorable Speaker, that actually tell women that now that you do not have the ability to be able to get children, you can come to my church, and me, the pastor or the bishop, can be able to do this, and you can be able to get children, Honorable Speaker. That is exploitation, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, it is something that is happening in our schools. It is happening in the primary schools. And Honorable Speaker, I remember when I was growing up, while we had a very powerful politician in this country, Honorable Speaker, there was a serious notion in this country that for you to be a principal, if you are a woman, you had to be in very good records and books of that particular politician in this country, Honorable Speaker. So the issue of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, especially on the part of women, did not start yesterday, and it has been happening for so many years, Honorable Speaker. And that's why, Honorable Speaker, as a house, as Parliament, Honorable Speaker, we have the responsibility to ensure that all the existing laws are empowered, Honorable Speaker, so that we are able to end the issue of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, especially towards women. Honorable Speaker, I want to be on record that sexual harassment is not only against women, but also against men. It is happening for both in both sides, Honorable Speaker. Just that, Honorable Speaker, in Africa especially, the people who suffer most because of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, are women. And Honorable Speaker, I have been able to go through the report that has been brought to this House by the Committee on Labor, Honorable Speaker. The report, Honorable Speaker, is shocking. I have read in a certain, in page number 13, Honorable Speaker, where the county police commander informed the committee about the number of police stations in the two estates, Honorable Speaker. It says that there is a total of 15 police stations, Honorable Speaker, in that particular estate. And to be specific, Honorable Speaker, James Finlay estate, Honorable Speaker, has 3 police stations, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I have so many unanswered questions. I am just wondering, Honorable Speaker, who and what does these 3 police stations doing in one estate, Honorable Speaker? And none of those particular police stations, Honorable Speaker, have a single record of any person who is actually reporting sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker. You know, Honorable Speaker, that tells you there is more than meet the eye in this issue, Honorable Speaker, because we cannot have 3 police stations within one particular estate and get 0 reports on the same, Honorable Speaker. It tells you, Honorable Speaker, even those persons who are working in that police station, Honorable Speaker, are participants of that particular heinous act that is happening in those estates, Honorable Speaker. So the person who is supposed to help the people who are victims of sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, have also partnered with those perpetrators, or they are actually the chief perpetrators, Honorable Speaker. And that one must be looked into, Honorable Speaker. We cannot be having 3 police stations and having 0 reports and having no one having knowledge of the sexual harassment happening, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, when the committee visited the National Intelligence Service office, Honorable Speaker, in Kericho, they confidently told the committee, Honorable Speaker, that they are not aware or they have no report. Honorable Speaker, for heaven's sake, this is the NIS. This is the intelligence body, Honorable Speaker, that has the power and has the mechanisms to be able to see things that are happening, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I think it's just, I don't know how it should be called, Honorable Speaker, but it is totally unfair. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, and I want to ask your indulgence that I get an extra minute, Honorable Speaker, so that I can be able to conclude on this last statement. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The last issue, Honorable Speaker.
1 minute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The last issue that I want to raise, Honorable Speaker, is the victimization of the said victims. Honorable Speaker, a sexually harassed person is already a very weak person, Honorable Speaker. And the damage that has been caused by the sexual harassment, Honorable Speaker, is not only physically damaging, but also emotionally permanent, Honorable Speaker. This is the same person who needs to go back to the perpetrator for them to be able to get their daily wage to take care of their families. Honorable Speaker, I want to say sexual harassment has no place in this country, and it should remain as such, Honorable Speaker. And every law and act, Honorable Speaker, should be empowered, Honorable Speaker, so that it can be more punitive to any perpetrator of sexual harassment in whatever cadre of the society, Honorable Speaker. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to this matter.
Okay, thank you very much. The Honorable Beatrice Kemei, member for Kericho County.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. I wish to support the report of the Departmental Committee of Labor and to thank the said committee for the work they did in inquiring the matter that I raised in the floor of this House concerning the sexual harassment of female workers in the T estates of Kericho. Madam Speaker, I wish to also support the recommendations in the committee report and state as follows. First, Madam Speaker, the DCI needs to fast track their investigations in identifying the victims of sexual harassment and ensure that those found culpable are brought to book and the victims adequately compensated for the damages occasioned by these heinous acts, Mr. Speaker. Some of them are reported to have been infected by HIV/AIDS, and they are not able to work adequately and to fend for their families. Mr. Speaker, the report recommends that the victims should report the incidences to the police and the county gender office. Well, I support this recommendation, but the victims ought to be assured of their protection so that they can get the courage to speak of the same. And Mr. Speaker, as we speak now, I must also say that the leading petitioner, Dr. Geoffrey Otieno, who was representing the sexually harassed victims, died under unclear circumstances. And this one should not be taken lightly. We also have the lead counsel, Kilpat Kemboy, has been threatened, together with the Kenya Planters Branch Secretary for the Union, that is Dixon Sang. They have been threatened for standing with the victims. And this one should not be taken lightly. We have also said that the victims should report. But we ask ourselves as a house, why can't they report? And it is very clear that the victims fear the criminal procedure, given that they are subjected to open court to testify, and majority of them have families. So rights to privacy is compromised. Mr. Speaker, I also want to remember that the report states the independence of the gender office within Kericho Police Station is questionable, having been funded by James Finlay, T-Estate. I wish to call out the officers manning that gender office and to demand that they effectively perform the duties expected of them. And I must also say that as a house, we shall follow up through the Committee of Implementation to ensure that the recommendations of this report are implemented, because the people of Kericho County are waiting to see the stern action taken on those found culpable. Mr. Speaker, I also want to mention that in the contemporary best practices in the world in dealing with such issues include creation of audit team for workers themselves to audit companies like the multinationals on the sex for work or any other human rights violation happening in the place of work, maybe through capacity building and advocacy. And Mr. Speaker, I also want to thank the Speaker for when this report was brought here. He actually, since I want to thank him so sincerely for his commitment to support the efforts of the women leaders, the legislators under KEWOPA, to actually go around the counties, speak to the women, to alleviate such acts. And as I finalize, Mr. Speaker, I wish to propose an amendment to the motion, and allow me 1 minute to do so, that the motion is amended by Part A, insertion of the following words immediately after the figure 2023. I quote, subject to insertion of the following. Okay, thank you. Subject to insertion of the following recommendations in paragraph 74 after subparagraph Roman 9 on page 23 of the report, and Roman 10, where the T estates are found culpable of acts of commission or omission regarding the sexual harassment of their employees, the government should ensure that the T estates adequately compensate the victims for the damages occasioned by the heinous acts. And Roman 11, the government should provide psychosocial support to the victims to mitigate the effects of these traumatic experiences and aid them in their recovery. Part B, that the consequential amendments be effected in the report thereof. And Mr. Speaker, I call upon Honorable Umi to second the motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you so much. Members, you realize members that she's just order members. She's just made a proposed amendment. I was going to ask her to get someone to second the amendments, then I'll give directions after that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I call upon Honorable Umi to second. Thank you.
I second.
Go ahead. You seconded already? Okay. I hope members have the proposed amendments by the member for Kericho. And I would therefore proceed to propose that the motion now being debated be amended as proposed by the member. And the proposed amendment reads as follows: that the motion be amended by the insertion of the following words immediately after the figure 2023. The subject to insertion of the following recommendations in paragraph 74, after subparagraph 9 on page 23 of the report, so that we have subparagraph 10 that would say, where the TA states are found culpable of acts of commission or omission regarding the sexual harassment of their employees, the government should ensure that the TA states adequately compensate the victims for the damages occasioned by the heinous acts. And 11, that the government should provide for psychological support to the victims to mitigate the effects of these traumatic experiences and aid them in their recovery. That the constitutional amendments be effected in the report thereof. Honorable members, I would direct that we go on with the debate. This matter, the way it is. You know, we can't put the question on this amendment for obvious reasons, as you would notice. So allow us to go on with the debate, then we'll do the needful when we get the numbers. So this chance will then go to the Honorable Onyango Oyo of Muhoroni.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for catching my eye and enabling me to contribute to this motion. Honorable Speaker, although I'm a ranking member of this committee, for other reasons I was not able to accompany the committee to Kericho, but I believe that the reason why a lot of investigations have been referred to the DCI because they did not come out very explicit cases or exhibits to prove the allegations. I want to say that God, in his own wisdom, made sure that he wanted the human beings to multiply. And therefore, he allowed us to have sex. So this thing of having sex, unless the people are very afraid of their background, should not be something that is used to scare people. I am wondering that the women folk spend a lot of time defending themselves and wanting to demonize anything sexual as if it is the only guilt or offense that happens in this world. That is not true, because proper analysis will show you that many women who push themselves the ladder of employment, including those who get voted to parliament, also push for sex favors, sexual favors. And it is only men. It's not only men. And I want to say that in this case, proper investigation should be done by the DCI, and the culprits should be brought to books so that the truth about the whole thing is known. I am a bit cagey because I preside over leadership of a place where they grew a lot of sugarcane, and I have duplicity of the caliber of workers that are in Kericho who work in the sugarcane plantations. So somebody funny trying to replicate the Kericho Finley James Finley saga recently sent me a message that something was coming up, like Kericho, the workers in the sugarcane are also known to benefit, to get promotions or get other considerations after having sex with the supervisors of those sugarcane factories. So I should have an investigation and know the truth and see how it can be stopped. But I'm not gullible, so I quickly told him that the sugar industry stopped these things of using the sugarcane plantation, I mean the weeders and those plantation workers. They are now subcontracted to businessmen. So it's up to the businessman who brings his subcontracted workers to work for Chemelil or Moroni or Miwani or Kibos for that aspect, who is supposed to look after his employees. They are no longer employees of the tea industry. Why am I bringing this? I'm bringing this because people have found this is a gray area. It's a gray area where people want to make money. Powerful women are now extorted by some photos that may not be very true. Some are what they call, I don't know what they call it, but they can have your image. They can have your image and then purport that you are having sex with somebody. What? Photoshop. So they are now everywhere. With the high technology we are going through, we must accept all these things. But anyway, what I want to say, there's a saying that when a dog bites a man, it is not news. But when a man bites a dog, it is big news. Because the job of the dog is to bite a man. But the job of a man is not to bite a dog. So this ulabalu we are having here about women, you are rising to fame. If you are caught somewhere, it takes two to tango. But if an influential woman is caught doing something, she's being pumped into higher influence. So that should not be a problem. More so when it is sexual intercourse, I should not see why my colleagues are jumping up and down if one of them is caught in the wrong foot, and then you think that's the high end of the world. That's making her more famous. So I want to say that in this case of Kericho, investigators should go further and should zero in on the actual perpetrators of this heinous fact. Otherwise, I support the report. Thank you.
Member for Elgeyo Marakwet.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this motion. Honorable Speaker, the issue of sexual harassment, I think, is an issue that has been there with us since the inception or since the beginning of this world. And at times, the more we change, the more we remain the same. The more we think we are civilized and we are on the know, the more we realize that the same thing remains. Mr. Speaker, I want to appreciate the report by the Labour Committee. But then, Mr. Speaker, as I heard, they were saying that it was said that not so many people went to the police station to report the cases. Neither did they find so many people coming up to complain. Sexual harassment, Mr. Speaker, speaking from the point of a woman, is something that brings a lot of shame and a lot of, in fact, you become more harassed when you report sexual harassment issues at times. So you realize that the DCI should not base so much their finding on the number of victims who will come out to testify. Here you have a woman who is single, for example, and has children to feed and take care of. This woman depends on the tea plantation to ensure that her family runs, or to ensure that there is still life in her family. Then you put her in a very awkward situation whereby she has to testify against her employer in order to be heard and for that to find justice. If I am that particular woman or any other woman can attest to this, they'd rather leave the case at that so that their children will still go to school and so that our family will still eat. Mr. Speaker, something must be done, and I've always told men, when we speak about sexual harassment and talk about women, it is not only, don't look at that point in the lens of your wives or your girlfriends. Look at that point in the lens of your mothers and your daughters. Because you find at times these bills or these issues or these discussions to do with sexual harassment and women are not much supported by men because they look at it in the lens of their women. Look at it in the lens of your sister, in the lens of your daughter or your mother. As much as investigations are going to be done, I want to urge the committee to follow up to ensure that the culprits will be brought to book. Let us not just downplay the whole issue and say that it has been assigned for investigation, or we start now arguing the point that the company is subcontracting, the sexual harassers are subcontracted. They should be held responsible. Remember, during the BBC video, it was said that most of those women have been infected with HIV and AIDS. It means that this person is knowingly, it is so hard to find that particular person doesn't have knowledge that he is infected. So at times also the stigmatization surrounding the HIV and AIDS, whereby people fear that these women fear that even their own families might run away from them, is real. So the government should just find a way of protecting and be the person suing the tea companies, or they should stand up for those women, because they don't have to be the ones executing or the ones witnessing. It can be done as a point of interest to save a population, because if one person can infect around 60 people, Mr. Speaker, and we come here and say that where the DCI will deal with that particular person, what happens if that particular person gets out of the hook? What will happen to these hundreds and thousands of people who are already affected and infected, and their life is no longer going to remain the same? So as I support the motion, I still want to say that this issue should be relooked at, and the penalties of the same should be stiffened and tightened. Companies should be given ultimatums that whether they are their employees perpetrate the act or the affair, there should be stiff penalties that should be faced, even when the third parties relating to the companies are the ones are the accused ones, because we need to come up and save people. We need to come up and save this gender, because this gender is all of us. All of us are one, so that we don't just look at it as women.
Member for Starehe.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to make my maiden speech this month, and for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this debate about the issue of sexual harassment in Kericho. I think this issue not only affects people in Kericho, it is an issue that has cut across board. Actually, in my constituency, where I happen to have two wards that have huge population in the ghettos, the issue of sexual harassment is very rampant. Actually, and I find it as a point of concern that people have developed very, very shady, shanty mechanisms of dealing with these issues, such that some of these issues don't even get to the police. They have formed these some committees where they say that the issues to do with sexual harassment should be dealt with by the community itself, and I find that to be very untoward, and I find that very 21st century, and I think we should take serious measures to address these issues of sexual harassment. The government that has come on board, the Kenya Kwanza government, we have very many expectations and hopes to the government, and I wish it takes very stern steps so that we can deal with these perennial issues once and for all. We should come out strongly and repeal the Sexual Offences Act and have capital offences implicated on these sexual offenders, so that once and for all we can deal with this issue that has been bedeviling this country. It is time we rise up for the women of Kenya today, and as members of the 13th Parliament, I think the responsibility lies on us to make sure we come up with a conclusive solution to the issues of sexual harassment. It is time we speak from one side of the mouth and be proactive. we don't become reactive. We don't address issues after all those women have been raped, after all those women have been sexually harassed. That's when we're looking for solutions. Let us be proactive and come up with mechanisms that will deal with this issue once and for all. I happen to come from a single parent family, and I've been brought up by my mother in the streets of Nairobi. And I can attest to some instances of where people expected sexual favors for her, maybe to maneuver in her area of business. But being a Christian woman, I think, and through God's grace, she managed to raise me, and today I'm an MP, and I feel I have the responsibility to protect other women who are going through the same when they are bringing up their children single-handedly. And it is time this parliament acts in very stern words and in very stern actions that we may address the issue of sexual harassment once and for all. On the other issue of the cyberbullying that has happened to one of the leaders of this country because of the video circulating, I think it is time also this parliament amends laws and we become in tandem with the current technology. Because issues of cyberbullying tend not to have any backlash from the laws that we have in Kenya. People can easily even bully you in social media. People are throwing insults to us, even as politicians, social media, but no stand steps can be taken because I think we have to have laws that will be in tandem with the social media, maybe the technological advancements of this country, so that we can address these sexual predators once and for all. It is very unfortunate that such an injustice can be done to one person, affect their families, affect their husband and their children for a lifetime, and the person who has done that goes scot-free. They must also suffer a lifetime sentence as the family suffers a lifetime sentence of torture and trauma. I think it is time now we need to come and have very serious deliberations on the route that this country is taking. Because if we go in that way, we'll have a very sick society where people can pervertedly use photos, even to satisfy themselves and other videos from other people, and actually take matters into their own hands literally. It needs to stop once and for all. I submit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for West Nagirango.
I want to thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to also support this very, very touchy motion that touches on a very heinous crime that has not been given the weight it deserves. I want to thank the Committee for Labor for going boldly to inquire into this menace that is happening in our plantations. I also happen to have a few of those plantations neighboring Kericho. They are in Sotik and areas like KBC, which border my constituency. And the findings about this menace in Kericho is actually a case study of what must be happening everywhere in the plantations and everywhere else in the workplace. As a practicing lawyer, Mr. Speaker, I've had occasion to represent clients who have made allegations of sexual harassment within the banking working place, within the sports working place, even dare I say, even within the worshipping areas. And therefore, the problem of sexual harassment is not limited to the plantation sector, but it is widespread in the workplace. And I want to, at this juncture, celebrate our artists from Nyamira, my constituency, who composed a special piece about sexual harassment and women in the workplace. The Sungusia band who sang about boss, a boss who was harassing and cowing lady workers to sexual favors in hotels in exchange for promotions, in exchange for salary increases. And while we do this, Mr. Speaker, this House must rise to the occasion and import very heavy penalties for these sex pests who are marauding the workplaces and abusing their positions in office to unleash their bad manners on otherwise the very respectable employees. And while I'm at this, I must admit that Kenya and indeed Africa is a paternalistic continent and country, and therefore claims of sexual harassment or talk of sex hurts women more than it hurts men. And that is why for men who are accused of doing those things, they are celebrated and taken as heroes when they are actually criminals, while the consequences are different for our sisters, mothers, and daughters. And therefore, that is why in dealing with this menace, this House must come up with serious legislation that makes this offense as harsh as it can be, so that those who are still harboring any idea that women are not the angels God has given us must pay heavily for such consequences. And as I support Mr. Speaker, I want to beg of us leaders to also take caution that we are targeted through those sexual episodes or whatever pictures that are going to be taken of us, because people out there are out to bring down serious leaders in this country. And for the videos taking the rounds, targeting a semblance of a leader in this country who comes from where such a position has never been held by a lady, I want to say shame on them, and I want to encourage all women to stand up and ignore that rubbish, discharge their responsibilities in this country as if nothing had happened. I submit and support.
Member, just remind you that the motion we are discussing has no video or anything to it, because I've heard every member now wants to. It's almost basically you're almost basically also supplying that video. The more you talk about it, this chance goes to the member for Korea West. Robi, the mic next to you may work. Just
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa nafasi hii pia mimi kuweza kuchangia hii ripoti ambayo imeletwa katika bunge hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii ni ripoti nzuri sana katika nchi yetu ya Kenya ambayo inajali maslahi ya binadamu. Na wakati tunazungumzia kulazimisha mapenzi kwa sehemu za kazi, na hii saa zingine inaonyesha tabia ambayo si nzuri katika hii nchi ya Kenya. Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima sisi kama Wakenya tutilie manani, na tunasema, na Waswahili pia wanasema mapenzi hailazimishwi. Kama mtu hajakubaliwa, si lazima kulazimisha mwenzake. Na hili limetokea kila mara kwa mara, na tumeangalia mambo yakijitokeza, na tunataka tutoe onyo kali sana. Na yule mheshimiwa ambaye alileta haya matatizo ambaye yanatokea kule Kericho, na kweli ni kwamba Kericho ni sehemu ambayo imejulikana ya chai, mahali hata wale tunasema mahasala au wale wanaenda kutafuta riziki kule, watu wengine wanachukua nafasi hiyo bali kusaidia yule mwenye anahitaji msaada, inakuwa sasa anachukua nafasi hiyo kuitumia vibaya, kuweza kulazimisha. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa kweli hatuwezi sema kuwa ni hali inapata wanawake peke yao. Hata wanaume pia tunajua inatokea namna hiyo. Kuna wale wanawake ambayo unakuta saa zingine yeye labda ameweza kumpenda mwanaume na mwanaume ampendi, inatokea kuwa analazimishwa. Mheshimiwa Spika, najua wakati tunaongelea jambo hili ni jambo ambalo ni la huzuni na la aibu, kuwa hapa duniani kila mtu vile umeumbwa inatakikana ufuate maagizo ya ngono vizuri. Kumaanisha kama mwenzako hajakukubalia ni makosa na ni marufuku kwenda kumlazimisha kulala naye au kuweza kulazimisha katika ngono. Biblia tunajua kuna mwanaume aliumbwa, mwanamke akaumbwa. Wawili wakawekwa sehemu, wakaambiwa muweze kuzaa, mpate watoto, tuongezeke. Ili tuongezeke inatakikana tuwe tumekubaliana. Kwa hivyo nafasi hii wakati mtu unachukua kwa lazima kuweza kulazimisha mwanamke ili kuweza kulala naye si hoja nzuri. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi katika Kenya hii tunataka kuambia serikali kuwa ifuatilie sana maeneo kama hayo ya kazi, ambayo unakuta kuna bosi mmoja badala atumie hekima. Ametamani au msichana ameenda pale kutafuta kazi, badala aweze kumsaidia apate kazi ya kihakika kwa sababu amesoma, anamwambia ili upate hii kazi lazima ufanye hivi. Hiyo ni kulazimishana pia. Pia tunataka kusema kuwa kuna vile vile wale mabosi ambayo kuna kazi mahali ili aweze kukusaidia upate hiyo kazi, unakuta yeye anatangulia kusema kuwa lazima ni mapenzi ndio aweze kukusaidia. Na mimi nataka kuchukua nafasi hii kushukuru sana na kupongeza hii idara ambayo ni wafanyikazi iweze kutilia maanani sana na kuchunga wafanyikazi kila mahali. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Sana, nafasi hii itaenda kwenye Mheshimiwa wa Kitui Kusini.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support this very important report by the committee. And I would like first to congratulate the member for Kericho County and also thank her for the way she has narrated, even within the few minutes that she got. Honorable Speaker, I would also like to say that I have read this report, I've looked at the recommendations, and I have also listened to the members who went to the ground and interrogated these people who are suffering in Kericho County. Honorable Speaker, I also would like to thank the Speaker of this House for ensuring that this is not only a house of debating on matters, but going to the ground and ensuring that the reports are tabled, and this must be pushed extremely hard, Mr. Speaker, so that we just do not talk, and these people who are suffering, the culprits are not brought to book. So, Honorable Speaker, I would like to support and to say that it's not only in Kericho, this is happening in extremely wealthy homesteads in this country. It is happening in the poorest homesteads. It is happening in places of worship, Honorable Speaker. It is happening in our universities where we are talking about grades, sex for grades. It is happening in situations where we have extremely poor people in Lake Victoria, where it is fish for sex. So, Mr. Speaker, this matter must be taken very seriously. Going to this report, Mr. Speaker, is that I have looked at the recommendations of this committee that seems to suggest that even for someone to be hired in this company, they are taken through this ordeal. For you to be promoted in this company, you are taken through this ordeal. For you to be taken to the easier department to work, you are taken through this ordeal. And Mr. Speaker, people are scared to report. Even when they report in whispers, nobody takes action. So, Mr. Speaker, I think now it is upon this House to ensure that as soon as this report is passed by this House, the implementation committee takes action to make sure that the people whose names appear on page 18, Honorable Speaker, of this report are brought to book, because their names, the names of the company are stated, and the names of the people are stated, and we have a government of the day, of a very serious president, who I am sure will not accept, the Honorable Samoei Ruto. This should not be happening in our country at this time when he is seated in the throne of this country. Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that this matter is not happening in this country only, but it is happening in the Hollywood. And what these countries did in America is that they took it very seriously, and they did not care the names of the companies that were being mentioned, because they were the best. They did not care about the standard or the wealth that was held by the culprits in the Hollywood. They decided to crush the menace, at least for those who spoke in the Me Too a report that is already in the media. Anybody who spoke was given a chance, Honorable Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to say that this is not only a sexual harassment issue, it is a gender violence issue, Mr. Speaker. It is a social issue. It is affecting these people's health, their social life, their families, their health, because you are talking about HIV/AIDS. Honorable Speaker, you just warned us that there is no video in this report. But I would like to request you to allow us to speak about this matter that is happening now, Honorable Speaker. That women leaders in this country are being exposed, Honorable Speaker, by men who are scared about the success of these women, Mr. Speaker. I would like to encourage the leaders that have been mentioned, the particular leader that has been mentioned in this video, and to tell her that she cannot stop. She must continue working very fast. She must run. She must defeat the men, Honorable Speaker, who have put her in this situation, Mr. Speaker. We are not telling the women to be careful. We are just going to tell them that ensure that you are not caught unawares. Ensure that you do not get near these men who are terrible, Mr. Speaker. But I must tell the women, you must keep moving. You cannot stop, because there is a video circulating. It has gone, it has happened, but it must not stop these women from being leaders of this country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Wewe unaweza filaje ukitoa majina kama hayo?
Aje sasa, na mimi hata si ati mmoja wewe.
Wewe si? Malizia, wewe si?
Ataifanya.
Huyo jamaa shikisia.
Labda commission, endelea kumpigia, eventually lazima atashika.
Relax. Itakuwa sawa. Leo itakuwa sawa. Ya Allah, Abdullah telefoni.
رحمن ربي رحيم وعزيز ربي حليم.
Ni moja ya nguzo za tano za Uislamu, na ni muhimu sana kwa kila mmoja azingatie kutilia maanani kufunga katika mwezi huu mtukufu wa Ramadhani.
Katika sisi hujibidiisha ili tuweze kuchuma thawabu ambazo tunaweza kujipatia ndani ya mwezi wa Ramadhani.